I'm on one level not keen about monotheism. I think it gives a distorted map for the psyche to emulate. But I also see Christianity as a pretty radical betrayal of the monotheistic agenda. Monotheism, whatever its social consequences, makes sense. It's a drive toward philosophical economy. And so you get down to the idea, well, not many gods, but one God, and it works like this. Christianity is a Gnostic cult of physical redemptionism grafted on to this Jewish theology by Alexandrian controversialists who had a very curious notion of what they wanted to do. I see Islam as a reclaiming of the pure intent of Judaism to conduct a philosophical discussion of the consequences of monotheism, and that all becomes really murky with the mystery of the Trinity and the nature of the Father and the Son. Christianity is an incredibly exotic religion. I mean, other religions are just absolutely straight ahead. They're metaphysical systems with moral consequences. Christianity is about the absolute worship of the irrational and the incredible. You know, Origen, who was one of the great patristic writers, great Christian fathers, they said, your religion is absurd. It's preposterous. And he said, credo te absurdum. I believe it because it is absurd. That's the foundation of the Western mind. All this mumbo-jumbo about reason and evidence, I mean, when you strip it away, you know, it's ultimately a faith in the absolutely, incontrovertibly incredible, the resurrection, you know. And all three, see, the permission for this belief, it's true, comes out of the earlier stratum of Judaism, where an earlier unlikely promise is made, the promise that God would enter history. That's what set them up for this later deal. God will enter history, they were told. And then, so then if you're a theologian of this faith, the question obviously arises, how will God enter history? And, you know, you ruminate on that for 500 or 600 years, and eventually what you come up with is he will send his own son. He will send a divine manifestation. There will be an absolute union of spirit and matter. There will be a descent of the Paraclete into our midst. And the idea of the Messiah is born, which is an incredibly peculiarly Western idea. I mean, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Mencius, Confucius, these were guys, you know. A Messiah is a horse of a different feather. A Messiah is not exactly a human being, you know. A Messiah is a coalescence of historical force, of great energy. So, I don't know, where are we with all of this?
I mean, these are the same, I don't want to argue it, but these are I think there's just another way of looking at it also. These are the same guys we have to remember, the white, you know, male guys that when we see the Pope over here, we see the medieval patriot. These are the same guys that burned Giordano Bruno, the great poet, visionary, and scientist, to the stake because he wouldn't recant. Probably a stubborn Calabrian, I'm not sure about that, though.
Well, but look at the reputation they gave him. I mean, Bruno without the pyre is a whiskey priest laying waste to the maids of Umbria. No, I mean, here's my point on this. I agree that history has been a nightmare, and if it could have been any other way, then probably there's some answers have to be given and some debts paid.
Well, see, I'm saying it might have been another way if they hadn't burned all the libraries, sought to destroy knowledge. to the point where in the Middle Ages, when the Christians so-called liberated places like Toledo and found these Arabic writings about the Greek lost science, they couldn't even translate it because they didn't even have a concept of zero. It's like the barbarians won in our society.
Well, they won.
Would they have won if they closed down the philosophical schools and didn't destroy all the knowledge? Would it have been different? Well, we'll never know because we didn't have the chance.
Well, what I hear you saying is life is tough.
Especially for pagan philosophers.
Yes, you may have to make your career choices carefully here. Yeah.
Is your belief in this one dwell point to which history is moving a form of monotheism?
Is the form of, well, I guess it's a form of Neoplatonism. I had digested all that, Porphyry, Proclus, Plotinus. I do feel the power of the argument that when all boundaries are dissolved, there will only be the plenum, the one. It has different. It's a very long, an idea with a very long history in Western philosophy. It goes back to the Timaeus. See, my idea of how this thing is working is that boundaries are dissolving. If you want to make one prediction that you can take to the bank, that would be it. Boundaries are dissolving. So any scheme that involves setting up new boundaries is probably doomed. Well, yes, so it is a kind of impressionistic pastiche that we are trying to anticipate. The other thing is, and this goes slightly more to the guts of the mathematics of my theory, but I think that time is wrapping itself in an involuting spiral where each cycle is 1/64th as long as the cycle that preceded it. Well, if you accept that premise, then you have a cosmogonic scheme where half of the unfolding of the manifestation of the cosmos will occur in the last hour and 35 minutes of its existence. So attempting to anticipate what it will be like as we go down the maelstrom toward the lapis at the end of history, it can only be conceived psychedelically and wordlessly. I mean, I really think history is a psychedelic experience. And, this old saw about how ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. If you carry that through to completion, then all organic process ends in the big question mark of death. And we individually recapitulate that journey. We each will end in death. One of the things that always amuses me is that people are so resistant to the idea of the end of the world, never apparently having noticed that it's a fairly academic question when played against the fact of the certainty of their own death. Their world is going to end, so what's with all this altruistic concern about all the rest of us? We'll take care of our own apocalypse, thank you. You just need to come to terms with your own, because it's inevitable. Somebody yeah.
What do you think will happen to Islam, when the East hits the West and fundamentalists? And I know it's struggling to survive and to reclaim its old territories.
Well, I think that as this postmodern, post-communist thing unfolds, for several reasons, Islam is poised to make the greatest steps forward since the 10th century, for two reasons. First of all, because out there in Central Asia, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzia, an enormous chunk of real estate is poised, and rightfully, toward moving toward fundamentalist Islam. if those states become Islamic states, Islam will effectively double the amount of land that it controls on this planet. The other thing is, as time accelerates, as the weirdness spreads, the global networking, the simulacra, the teledildonics, the virtual reality, as all this stuff becomes more and more prevalent, a lot of people are going to freak out and reach for the button marked return to traditional values. And on a global scale, this is Islam. Christianity is a horror to capitalism. Christianity is not traditional values. Islam is not kidding. And I can imagine millions and millions of people alive today who can't imagine that they would ever entertain conversion to Islam, who will, before the end of their lives, make it part of what they're about, because there is no other traditional system available. I mean, it's either that or what I call consumer object fetishism, which means, the Mercedes, the house in Saint-Tropez, the Rolex watch, all of that. That's it.
The weekend seminar.
Diamonds on the soles of her shoes, yeah.
But how about Orthodox Judaism? Or Hasidism and all that stuff like that?
I don't think Judaism is not a converting religion. You say you want to become a Jew, they send some guy 3 times to convince you it's a bad idea. You're not going to... Yes.
In between, if you had